Thank you. Call ourselves to order, please. Reflect on Monday the 13th. Any members of the public here, so we'll go with that. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes of January 10th. Thank you. Second. Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions or remarks? Editorial changes. I'll consider them approved. Alyssa? You have the floor.
Thank you. So I'm Elise Ricchetty for those who are not familiar. I'm the dementia care specialist here for the ADRC and just want to give you a few updates. There's still time to give feedback for dementia plan for the period of time between 2024 and 2020. So if any of you are interested in providing that feedback through a survey, I do have paper copies of the actual survey. Paper copies of the survey if you want to fill it out, and you can get them back to me or Beth, and then we can have that feedback registered. Otherwise, there's a QR code and there's a link that you can fill it out online. So it just gives you the opportunity to give any kind of feedback for the planning for the next 4 years of dementia care in the state of Wisconsin. There's also going to be a community conversation held at the PAC on Thursday night to get feedback from the community. So if anybody's interested in attending that, it's on Thursday of this week. The doors open at 5 and it starts at 5:30. And the members will receive a grant from the state of Wisconsin the different session. So we'll be there in the Kimberly Clark Theater at the Performing Arts Center, and I have some flyers here too if people want that. There's going to be food and that type of information as well. So there's that. The other thing is we just had we have an intern now. Her name is Grace Fowler. She's focusing on dementia programs, and so she just started in the first week of February. And what she's doing is she's going to all of the community programs that we have for people with dementia. So she's sitting in on minor classes, the memory cafes, spark programs. She's going to the respite programs and just getting a really good feel for what those programs are all about so that she can help to increase awareness in the community and talk with families, and also work with families if there's programs that they want to use and there's some barriers that they might have to getting there, whether it be transportation or other means. She's going to be helping to get more people out using our programs. We know that we have a lot of programs, there's a lot of wonderful things happening. We're just trying to increase awareness. Another thing that we have going on is the virtual dementia tour out in Parkview once a month. We did it for the first time last week, and it was it's a really good experience for the people who went through it. So the Community Foundation, Oshkosh Area Community Foundation, has given us a grant to promote that. So they've been running that in Carroll. So that's been helping to promote the program. And then they also have come to the Valley Memory Project to give them a pretty large grant from the Dementia Awareness Fund so that we can increase all of the programs in Winnebago County and really build up the programs in Oshkosh. So we just had one meeting about that, and we're kind of coming up with a plan to collaborate who are going to be partners and what exactly we're going to do with media, just to figure out how to get more awareness out there of what we have. So I think those are the biggest updates that I have. Were any questions?
Can just mention some of the items that have been promoted for people? It's not necessarily new, but it's kind of unique to us, I guess.
Yeah. So with there's a program that has, a funding program called the Alzheimer's Family Caregiver Support Fund. And it gives people, if they qualify financially and functionally, they can get up to $4,000 a year to use towards any kind of respite care, any kind of dementia items that might make their lives a little bit better or easier when they're caregiving for their loved ones. So I did pull together just a list for all the ADRC staff so that when they're using these this caregiver fund, that they are aware of certain items. So some of the things include like lifelike animals, there's cats and dogs that can respond to sound and they move. And so that can be really therapeutic for people who are in like the moderate to the later stages of dementia. We had a family that we gave to right before the end of the year, and they were just thrilled with how well they seemed to be real. Like their grandkids came in and thought they actually got cats, but it was totally really exciting for them. But there's other activities, there's different things to keep folks engaged in some meaningful activities with their caregivers. A lot of safety items that would be helpful for people if they're wandering or if they're needing help with identifying where the bathroom is or things like that. So there's just a big comprehensive list that we've come up with so that people who either they can be private pay and they could buy these themselves, but we're just promoting more items that can be used in the home for people. You know, their life going with you.
About 5 years ago, I had a very close friend that was a dementia patient, and he was in a local hospital and he died. And before he passed, they had him in a 24-hour-a-day care. So my question is, what happens to a person similar to that if there's nowhere else to go? The hospital's filled up, nursing home won't take them or something. What happens to that?
Some are ending up in the hospital. I'm going to say the word inappropriately, meaning they really don't need a hospital level of care. But we get people fairly regularly who go to the hospital for something and they're ready for discharge, but there's no facility to take them. So if death is somewhat imminent, they might actually keep them there. If it's a matter of behaviors that cause them to not be, a nursing home that won't take them, gosh, I don't know. We've got some facilities that take some pretty tough people. Sometimes they have to go in a locked unit. Thus far, we haven't had anyone with nowhere to go. The hard thing is that they sometimes have to go outside this area. You know, if they have a spouse that lives, say, here in Oshkosh or Neenah or wherever in our county, and then we have to send someone several counties away, that's not optimal, but we've had to send people to other counties. I'm kind of looking at Nicole because it sometimes becomes an adult protective services issue. And we seem to be able to find places so far.
Yeah, a lot of times, what's has ended up happening, just happened this weekend, is we've had to do an emergency protective placement for the hospital until we find somewhere appropriate for them to go, if the hospital is willing to take them.
So, I mean, my understanding, most hospitals are pretty well filled up. Oh, Milwaukee and both of them are all plugged up, and there. But yeah, I guess I don't think I got an answer to that. What? So then, let's say the hospital's plugged up, and this person is a threat to himself and everybody else. Where do they put? I don't think they stick them out in the street.
No, they've had backlogs in the emergency rooms, people waiting out in the halls.
So
They can't turn them down. They can't really just.
Well, I guess my last question then, is there any institution such as Parkview or hospital, do they have a unit, or do they have a couple spare rooms they keep just for that type of a situation?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is a dementia ward at Parkview, at least there was.
Yeah, there's several facilities who are dementia capable, is what they call
Locked.
themselves. And or locked, but they don't save rooms for anybody. So when it comes time for something, it's a scramble. It's not an easy thing.
I don't know, maybe I'm nitpicking. You would think that the state's gonna have to do something, they're gonna have to mandate for an institution. That's a vacant, just like they have empty parking spaces on parking lot for people. Because these people, like this fellow I'm talking about, to my knowledge, he was a threat to everybody.
It's actually in statute that we are supposed to have a designated facility, but no one's willing to sit with an open bed. And nor can they guarantee staff. So that, I think that's one of the bigger things. We talk a lot about caregiver shortages. And so let's say that that person who's got really challenging behaviors goes to the hospital and now they need to go to a facility, and there's a facility that's got an open bed, but they don't have enough staff. Their state license, you know, they're all, nursing homes are licensed, so they can't admit someone unless they have adequate staff or they're breaking their license.
Yeah.
But if we don't have a place for someone, we're technically out of compliance with statutes also.
Well, it's something that there's been some conversations that I know that Beth and I have been on. If there's been several counties willing to work together and fund a facility that has a couple of beds that we can save open, because we would have to pay to keep the beds open. And so I don't think it's went anywhere yet, but I know we were in conversation with Fonda, like, this is not a Winnebago County problem. This is a state of Wisconsin problem. Every county has the problem that when there's a crisis or when there's somebody that needs a placement, no one has a place that saves a spot for them.
Less than a third of the counties have what's considered a designated facility per statute. But like Nicole just said, that doesn't mean that that facility is available when they need it. You know, if let's say the designated facility, they have 2 beds, like you use the example, if both of them are filled, they can't use that facility. So it is definitely a statewide problem.
See, right now, Winnebago County got a contract with Fonda where we rent 4 beds in a secure detention, they call it secure detention
For kids.
for
Yep.
teenagers.
Yep.
Well, we're gonna do that for teenagers, maybe we're gonna do it for these people. These people with dementia, they're a threat to everybody, threat to society. Is it the county or somebody, the state's responsibility to protect society? I think.
Yeah, because it's so, I'm not trying to argue by any means, I agree 1000% with you. It's just that when, let's say we're sitting on an open bed that we're paying for, and now Joe Smith needs a place to go, they're having a hard time saying no to Joe Smith and letting that bed sit there until or unless a situation comes up for us. So there's such a shortage right now that, and it's not going to stop us from continuing to try and work on this. You know, we're talking with other counties, we're talking with the state. There's a lot of push, which, by the way, the state is working on its budget right now. So if anyone wants to talk to their legislator about adult protective services, there's a big push right now to say we have to recognize this. The state has given a lot of money to child welfare, rightfully so. What about the other end of the spectrum for the vulnerable adults who are aging? So there's a huge push for it right now. I don't know what's going to come out of it, but people are recognizing it. It's just that we don't have good answers right now.
Sounds like a situation that if you reserve 2 beds and they get filled because you need them, for everyone that's filled, wouldn't you need to reserve another one so you have an open bed? I mean,
That's the problem.
Right.
So
not just
even
that.
if you have a designated facility, it doesn't work because of that exact reason.
Well, there's a lot of people that are in the hospital for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, waiting for a bed to open up. So I feel like if we did have a designated facility, only 2 beds, people that are waiting in the hospital would take those beds right away.
Then you'd be without it.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
Listening, I was talking about the family, went through the training last week and they were It's probably moved by next year. So,
Yeah, it's pretty helpful to see, especially family members going through it. Very emotional.
And I think we're gonna see more of that emotion, you know, when a family member is maybe just simply not understanding or somewhat frustrated with their loved one, and then they go through that, and it's just very emotional.
For the situation. And no group.
You'd almost wonder, almost think that. That far down the road, that's gonna be a lot. Because they claim now so many people got mental illness, they usually after a mental illness, they dementia of some form set up. So I hope the state is monitoring a lot of this, because maybe at some point, they're gonna have to build a building or two throughout Wisconsin to handle these people. Like they used to many years ago, I think they call them sanitariums or something. They may have to do that.
But you're right that, you know, we know a certain percentage of our aging population has dementia. And as our aging population grows demographics wise, we're gonna have more of that. And like Elisa said, as the state's working on its dementia plan, there's several different components of the state's dementia plan. One is crisis, one is medical, one is community-based services. I'm missing the fourth one, and the fifth one is facility-based services. So it, you know, it'll be interesting to see with the state's next dementia plan, how aggressive they get with recognizing that there's a lack of facilities, period. So the facility-based committee for the first 4 years of the state dementia plan has looked at reimbursements, accreditation, different ways to help better serve people, but not a lot's happened. It really kind of went on hold almost with COVID.
That's probably what you said, that the problem is not the facility, it's getting trained person. Because even like a funnel, like a security engine, I guess that's something to deal with. So the police are not trained to do this, so they wouldn't stick them in there.
Right, and Rob gave me an article after the last meeting about some things that have happened at the King Veterans Home in the last couple of years. And again, that's just one more example where lack of adequately trained staff is in that situation deadly.
Well, and it's interesting, because Parkview does make sure that their staff do the virtual dementia tour, so that their staff are well trained. But I have a friend who is the nursing director at a facility in Fond du Lac, and talking to her about it, and she said that none of their staff do that, and they have mostly dementia patients. So even, you know, in a county facility that is pretty well funded, sometimes they don't have the greatest training, so.
Yeah, and they can see that they're dementia capable, but there's nothing that you have to show to prove that you can serve people dementia. So there's no training, there's no set criteria. And in fact, some people end up going to a dementia capable facility, and then when the behaviors become too extreme, they get kicked out. You know, you advertise as being dementia capable, and you took my loved one in your facility, and now you're telling me that they have to leave. And the other thing that's, I guess, on people's radar is Elisa's really not able to work with facilities. She can only work with people who live in the community. And so part of the dementia community who's trying to look at improved services is saying, well, what about these facilities? You know, so that just leaves them high and dry. So we've got this dementia person who's dementia care specialist who's got a lot of knowledge and skills, but she can't work with any of them. So it's on everybody's radar, really.
Any other comments or questions for Lisa? As
I have one. We talked about behavior, that they would get kicked out. Who would determine that?
Usually it's basically what it comes down to is the staff. If the staff are no longer able to keep that person safe or themselves or other residents safe, they send it up the chain to usually the director who says they give notice to the person. So it could be that the person.
Only subjective.
Well, technically, they have
And
to
what
give
I'm
30
thinking
days.
is the person given enough room to change. That's another question.
It's not so much the person changing their behavior, it's can the facility become better capable to support them? So I'll use an example of a gentleman who kept wandering at night. So the sun would go down and he'd start wandering outside the building, and it was not a locked facility. And their argument to discharge him was, we don't have staff to go wander around the building with him. So he needs to leave here. And in really working at, Elisa knows some of these techniques that can be used to really kind of whittle down what the issue is. He had been a night watchman early on in his career. And so it was re-triggering that it got dark and he needed to do a check. And so what they implemented is he would, because he did the same path. He wasn't just out wandering in the community. He did the same path every night and then he'd go right back to his room. So they knew when he left and they would look at a checkpoint to see, there he goes walking by, and then he'd go right back to his room and they're like, oh, okay, well, I guess he can stay here. Because he's really not a wanderer. He wasn't wandering away from the facility. He just in his mind needed to do this check. So is it the person changing, or is it that the staff become better equipped to support them?
Or I could tell you. Oh, well, I was a nurse anyway.
Yeah, it's not easy stuff. So Lisa will come back. We said every 3 months. Is that where we still want to be for dementia updates, which would be May or? Okay. Before the next agenda, because there's someone new here, maybe we could do, well, I should have stopped for an introduction, but maybe we could just go around, do a quick introduction. Amy is our new MA assistant. So Amy is the person who will, I always say she speaks both languages. So she learns the economic support world of helping people apply for medical assistance who need long-term care. But she learns it better than any of our ADRC staff do. So when we get stuck, she's the person that can get the appropriate verifications. She's just starting, hasn't even been through training yet, but she's just new to us and starting. So do you want us to do a quick introduction of who's on our committee?
I'd like to start.
Rob, do you want to do introduce yourself? Amy's our new MA assistant, and so I asked her to come down to our meeting if you just want to say kind of who you are or what you do here.
Would buff her out.
Yeah.
My name is Bob Patterson. What's the doctor? Well, the physically disabled. Physically disabled. I also have a little something. I've been on the committee for a number of years, but I enjoy it. Good to have you come down here.
I think you've served more years on the committee than anyone at this point, because you were one of the originals. So I know you went on and off, but I think you might be the most long-standing, possibly member, possibly. And you know who I am.
I think you look stay on only because I didn't have voting privilege.
Yeah, we took away your voting privileges.
But in the beginning of the ADRC, if I remember, it had no rules.
Correct. They weren't following the rules is what was happening.
Okay.
The rules were there, but they just weren't following them. And I came in and made people start following. Yeah. Kate,
Are we going?
she knows who I am, yeah.
My name's Kate Fenner. I'm a community volunteer. I had a husband who passed away in 19. He had FTD, frontal temporal dementia. a daughter with persistent and pervasive mental health issues, and I had a brother who was developmentally disabled. So kind of run again.
Okay, I'm chair of the committee. And, two kids, working, obviously by my age. Oh, I see. And all parts.
Supervise Lisa, specialists and. Identity medical assistant assistant, and doing getting to know things. I come from the assistant living and the assisted living facility for the last 26 years.
And then Tamara and Jan are on the,
Yeah, Tamara, would you, be kind enough to?
Sure. From the rural county out here in Amro,
Yeah.
and we have a, what's that?
I don't know if that, oh, it's just not working. Just a minute, Tamara, we can't hear you. Don't know why
I can hear her just fine. Do you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can hear you,
Not-
but not the other people.
Oh, I
Yeah, I-
can't, the people in the room are a little bit muffled, but I could hear you, Tamara. So, and Jan, I can hear you.
Okay,
Yeah, the one in the room was muffled today compared
Right.
to past. There's an example.
Are you there? What? Okay, let's move on to Liz.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Jones, Elizabeth Jones on the screen. And I have two sons. My younger son, who is 20, hello?
Yep,
Oh,
All right.
okay, it's working now. Minute to pick
Yeah.
it up.
sorry.
So both of you should be able to.
Oh, now we can see you guys.
Oh,
Hello,
okay,
can you guys hear us?
yes, we can. Would you? one of you-
Okay. But I think Tamara had already started. Go ahead, Tamara, and then I can go after you.
Okay, I'm Tamar, I'm from Amro. And we have a son who has a brain injury. So that's created a few problems in his life. And so I'm just here as a mom and a community volunteer.
I said your name wrong. I'm sorry, Tamar. I'm Liz Jones and I have two sons. My younger son, who is 27, has fairly classic autism, although he can talk, but and then my older son has a very he's got high capability. So he has autism, but has a master's degree, that kind of thing, but struggles quite a bit with social skills. And I've been very, very involved in the autism community. And that's why I'm here as a mom.
Thank you both.
Jan, yeah.
Is Jan,
Yeah, she's here.
Jan, would you be kind enough?
Hi
to
there.
tell us?
All right, can you hear me?
Yep,
Okay, Jan Olson. I'm actually sitting on a front deck by beautiful Lake Weir in Florida. And enjoying watching you on the screen and the sun and the lake at the same time. Anyways, I'm Jan Olson I live in Winnebago. I've had a lot of experience. I'm a retired nurse, but also a lot of experience with dementia and Alzheimer's in the elder population through doing a fair amount of POA work for healthcare with various people, friends, a cousin, aunts, parents, and so forth. And I'm sort of a representative from the Winnebago, and without Pete here, could be the Larson Winchester liaison through the Lions Club unless we find somebody in that role.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Lori?
I'm Lori Dufan, and I work at Winnebago County Public Health. I come as a guest and just to kind of share information with us, across divisions to people. And I work with the aging population. I also do half my time is through housing authority, and I do, 2.5 days a week with housing authority, which is all the buildings out there, and that's a wide range of people, disabled, low income, aging, just a lot of different people that we need to have, medical and medicine and blood pressure checks and everything. So welcome. We might
I am Michael Robinson and I represent Winnebago County Board Supervisor on District 15. And so that's who I represent, and we do take everything very seriously here because we have to get this information out, and if there's any all them resolutions that you need to get to the board, I don't know, I can get them rolled up and get them to the board and get it approved. You were talking about the homes that you have, trying to get homes. Well, we got homes for kids here at Oshkosh that we approved. And these kids are in and out of there within about what is it? I believe that the longest they ever stay is about a week, a month or 5 weeks at the longest. But that is a facility that, and one of the parts is that I think everybody knew about the emergency carrying during the cold season there when it got really cold, that we had to man it with our own staff from Winnebago County, and then finally we got people that are covered now 24/7. But so that became pretty important to us. So it is a pleasure to have you aboard.
One more.
Oh, I'm Jim Lauer and I'm a newbie. And so I would represent the elderly.
Yeah, but I mean, you've got experience with other populations too, kind of like a Kate or other people on the member, but technically, yeah, I guess you're representing elderly.
My background, I would say that I spent a lot of time in the fire protection industry, but I've been involved in a baseball program with the ARC group, and we started a baseball program a number of years ago, and then I've recently been dealing with relatives and uncle who was placed in a nursing home, and so I want to learn more about it and get involved in it. And so it's a process. And we came into it pretty wide-eyed, and it works, but I need to understand and help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you're welcome anytime. Thank you for being our traffic cop. Now, if you want to talk about
Sure,
signatures,
so every year, I need you to sign a new conflict of interest statement that just says that your position here on our committee does not cause a conflict, that in terms of that you work for an agency that's paid for by family care, or there's a bunch of other verbiage in there. But what I'm wondering is, I didn't bring them with me last month. I will bring a bunch with me for March. But for those who may not be here in March, would you prefer I mail it to you or email it to you? It's kind of what I'm looking to find out right now. So Tamar, how would you like it?
The mail is easy. That would work.
Okay. Jan?
You can email it. Either one, actually, but email.
Okay.
You'll get it quicker.
And Liz, I know that, okay, either's fine, okay. Yeah, so in the next couple of months, I'll be getting those signed from all of you. If you have questions when you get it, just let me know. but it's the same as last year.
Thank you.
Yeah, I put the next item on here about the public health unwinding. So for those of you who aren't aware, the actual public health emergency has not been like from an declared over. The federal government has not said that that is ending. But what they did is they took out food share and medical assistance / badger care. And they separated those from the rest of the public health state of emergency and saying that those extra benefits are ending. So this is the last month that anyone who received a bump up for their food share will receive that bump up. So if you were getting one amount and you've been getting a larger amount during COVID, that is ending this month. So February is the last month people receive that. Back in March. And I get it. It's contradictory. Groceries have gone up, money's going down, but that's what's going to happen is they're going to go back to what they normally would have gotten next month. And then for badger care or any type of medical assistance, people will start having to go through reviews. So they haven't had a review since COVID. So typically you have to be under $2,000 in assets. There's one type of medical assistance that this doesn't apply to, but for the most part, you have to be $2,000 or under in assets, and you have to be under a certain income to be on medical assistance. And what they're doing is they're going to take 1/12 of the people receiving medical assistance, and they're going to have a review in June, and then 1/12 in July, and 1/12 in August. So from June through the next year, everyone who receives medical assistance will have a review. What that might mean is that if you are now over assets or over income, or you've had a cost share that you haven't been paying, because some people have a cost share to have medical assistance. If you haven't been paying it, and you're in long-term care, like family care, you'll be kicked out of family care. So that's how it affects
If you don't
us. If you don't pay your cost share, or if you are over the income limits or over the assets, they were ignoring that. They weren't reviewing it. They weren't looking at it during COVID. And everyone is receiving letters, and we'll find out in May who's being reviewed in June, but those reviews are going to start in June. And they could potentially make people ineligible for family care because you have to be medical assistant eligible to be in family care or IRS. Making sense at all?
Yes. Reviews here in Oshkosh, or in the county, or at state or federal. Who actually does the reviews?
Our economic support consortium. So we have a consortium with 11 other counties. We have several other counties in the state that we have a consortium for. And so our economic support department does the reviews. The letters and everything is generated by the state, but we actually do the work of reviewing a person. And then family care entities who are already working with someone that they know is over, they're starting to work with those individuals now. They're not kicking them out of family care now. They're just saying at some point in the next 14 months, you're going to be reviewed. And, unless you get caught up with your cost share, or if you look at your income, or, they're trying to like give people a heads up that they work within their family care organizations.
Is there an effort by the Human Services Department here in the county to convene funders like the foundation and all the nonprofits involved in food share? Implications to get everybody in a room and kind of talk through the problem?
There hasn't been.
Should there be?
Yeah, I can talk to my counterpart in the food share, in economic support, and see if she's aware of that, because I know she's on some community-wide committees that discuss that.
It would just seem to me countywide that would make some sense.
Yeah, I can ask her about that.
And particularly, like we're talking a little bit on school year with terms of the foundation, but I would think some of the funders would be somewhat concerned about the impact that it will have on future grants and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
And the same is true actually in the medical assistance part.
Yeah.
expects, same kind of model of getting everybody in the room and say, okay, what are we doing?
Well, not to mention the impact it's gonna have on the nonprofits, the pantry and
Yeah, absolutely.
the food banks and those kinds of things.
Right, and you look at, I'll use Salvation Army as an example, sound like a downer today. If the Salvation Army as an example where they provide lunches Monday through Friday to a lot of people in our community, and they also have a food pantry where they provide regular food to individuals. And this year, they rely solely on the bell ringing. That's almost 100% of their operating budget. And this was one of the worst bell ringing incomes that they've ever had. So we're looking at an increase in the amount of food and a decrease in the amount of funding to support it. So, but yeah, I'll talk to Ann. She's my counterpart in economic support. And again, has more connections with some people and I know meets with some community partners regularly.
I just think this is a catastrophe of some consequence.
Are the food pantries and the food banks aware of this event?
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about a cost share, what are you exactly referring to?
If you are under a certain income limit, and I don't want to misquote what it is for 2023, you receive medical assistance without paying anything. But if your income is a certain level, then you have to pay a cost share to get that type of insurance. So this is also related to the Affordable Care Act, our form of Badger Care, where we've always had it that you can get Badger Care medical assistance, but if your income is a certain level, you have to pay a certain amount. What's called a cost share to get that. And so there are people in family care who have a higher income and they have to pay a cost share to keep their medical assistance, to keep their family care benefits.
So how much is this cost share? Does it, you said something about a point according to your income?
It does, yep.
So in other words, if you make, let's say, what did you say, $2,000 or what was it?
That's for assets. You have to have less than $2,000 in
Right,
assets,
so if you go over that,
then you are no longer eligible for medical assistance.
okay. But how does the cost share work though?
That is income dependent, and if Amy had been through another couple months of training, she could tell you the exact amount.
But I think
Um,
$1,500 a month income is allowable. So like, let's say it's $1,500 a month, anything you make over that would go to your cost share. They would only allow you to have that $1,500 a month. So if you bring in $2,500 a month, your cost share is $1,000. Is that kind of how it works? It's roughly about $1,500, but it is.
Well, the system actually keep the person poor if you want to improve themselves.
Yeah.
Well, so there is I didn't say that.
Well,
No, there is one form of this called MAP. And it's the Medicaid purchase plan where they allow you to have more assets and a higher income. So if you're like saving for a house or a car, you can still get Medicaid through MAP. Is the kind of the one loophole to all of this.
I think you have to work.
If you're working, if you're actually working and your earned income is higher, you can keep some of that through the MAP program.
Jim,
What kind of a number are they talking, or how many people are dependent on this program? Is it 1,000, 10,000?
Oh, gosh. I can run over and ask Ann in a
I'm
minute.
just curious, and I have a sub part to that. Is Kate asked about, do people know about it? Is it publicized? Are like the churches and those, these people?
No, I doubt that they're aware. I think some of the more common nonprofits are aware of it because it's being blasted by the state to different people. But I don't think some of the smaller entities and churches are aware of it.
Well, people who get food share have been notified because I'm guardian for a man who gets food share.
Correct.
And I was notified almost a month ago that his last extra benefit is gonna be in February. As of March, it will be gone.
Yeah.
So I would imagine those people who are already going to the food pantries are saying it's going away. So whether they've been officially notified or notified through the grapevine,
Yeah,
I think a lot of them probably know.
yes.
And people who haven't been paying their cost share, the long-term care agencies have been calling Adult Protective Services to let us know, to try to convince people to pay their cost share, because they will lose their
The support.
support, because they get people that have long-term care get a lot of support. They have like a case manager, sometimes they have a nurse, they have a placement that's dependent on that. And so we have been getting a lot of
Well, you know,
referrals.
it's interesting to say that because, even they talked about it. Because I'm in family here,
Mhm.
No.
Yeah,
they talked about a review, but they did not say when it was.
Nobody
No.
knows yet. Like
Yeah.
literally nobody knows when people are gonna be reviewed, because it wasn't dependent on when you initially signed up. It used to be a year from when you signed up. But none of those dates matter anymore. It's literally just a 12th, a 12th, a 12th. Nobody knows when those reviews are gonna be.
well, it's generally not the people themselves that aren't paying their cost share, it's their guardians that aren't paying their cost share.
And does anyone have an order of magnitude as to what this or deficit of cost share funds
The
approximates?
family care entities do. They haven't shared it with us, other than the
What?
ones that they're trying to be preventative to say, if you don't have your either in-home services or your placement, you're going to be at high risk, which is why Adult Protective Services. So there's those that they've notified us of, but there's a lot of others who aren't as high risk that they know
So
about.
ADRC, you know, the two of you don't have access to that information.
Nobody does because they haven't been reviewed. So if I'm a case manager with Lakeland or
Right.
CCI or Inclusa, I would have an idea. But we would have no idea, and our economic support has no idea because we haven't done a review on the people. So we really don't know.
So this has been since 2020, how long has this been?
Yeah, it's
I think it
been,
was June, wasn't it?
It's
I think that it went into place June 1st of 2020. So it's been a long time that there are some people who, actually, there's people in our economic support who've never had to do a review because they were hired after that date. But, there are people who, haven't had to abide by the typical rules in almost 3 years. So it's gonna have a big impact.
There's gonna be a lot of fallout.
So was this old system, is that a good system or is it a not so good system? You see what I'm saying? Is this gonna really hurt our community overall, or these people, or?
A lot of-
Not gonna be able to get any help anymore, or?
Yeah, a lot of this system stuff that we're talking about has to do with federal requirements. Some of it is
Wow.
state, but it's nothing that the county has imposed on, it's just going back to what the typical requirements are to be eligible for public benefits, and those are a lot more stringent than it's been since COVID. Like Rob said, you're not allowed to have or earn a lot of money and receive public benefits. Well, you won't be allowed as of June to do that.
The people who I think were in the system before June of 2020 will remember this when they're reminded. Because it's going back to what it was.
Yes, yeah,
I see.
yeah, it's not anything
not
new,
new.
it's, right,
It's just it's been on pause and now it's,
yeah. And there's some concern that it's gonna also affect the workforce because people have been able to earn more money and keep their benefits. And there's some people are gonna be like, yeah, I'm good, I'm earning more money, I don't need the public benefits. And other people are gonna say, no, I need those public benefits, and they're gonna go back down to a less than $1,500 a month income and leave or decrease their hours in our workforce.
So there's probably going to be a workforce impact also.
At the
Yeah.
worst possible time.
Right.
How are somebody's assets determined and whose responsibility is it to determine that?
Our, Ann Kriegel, is our economic support manager, so her whole team of staff have to do verifications of, you know, what kind of, you know, if you've got a burial trust or life insurance policy. Sometimes they get really messy where someone's got 2 vehicles in Omaha and a marital property that they never settled up with. Sometimes it's really messy. Sometimes when one of the spouses is in a institution of some sort, then they can allocate money, so they get really messy, but that's what our economic support does, is they verify what those assets are. So they have to get proof from banks, from insurance companies, titles of vehicles, that's what they do. And so again, you know, Amy's going to be learning kind of what do they need to do that, so that she can help expedite for people who are trying to get on medical assistance, what those needs are, but they are the ones that verify it. And I believe that they are getting some extra funding to help staff what it's going to be like, because it's going to be very different than they've experienced for almost 3 years with their staff.
That seems to me is quite a tough job. Because I mean, some people are probably trying to deceive their worker, and some people may don't even know what all their assets are.
Right. Right.
It seems like a tough job.
It's very tough. And so the ones that are pretty cut and dry, they can get on medical assistance or stay on medical assistance without much of an issue, but that some of them are just very messy.
Any other questions or comments?
I have one, what about the ABLE Act? Is that exempt or not?
I'm not sure. I don't want to speak, but I can look into it and get back to them.
Everybody know what the ABLE Act is?
No, I don't.
I'll try, and Beth will correct me, I'm sure. The ABLE Act is effectively is like an IRA. It's for individuals who are disabled, that you could fund medical expenses, some living expenses, but it has to, it's very much.
It's a trust,
It's
basically.
very much a trust. You have to demonstrate receipts and, you know, that kind of stuff. And it's generally it's viewed as tax exempt. It doesn't impact medical assistance generally.
Yeah, there's some other trusts like it, like WizPac and a couple other ones that are typically exempt. And I don't want to say yes for sure that ABLE is, but they're typically exempt from as an asset, because there's
Able.
LE, yep.
Okay.
It allows people to, basically have additional funds that can't be accessed for their pleasure or their,
Yeah,
you know, those funds that are set aside have to be for medical expenses.
yeah, it's
And they're
medical,
not held against you when you're doing the economic review.
Correct.
correct.
They're not
They're not
considered an
assets.
asset.
So my son has an account like that. That's funded by his mother. And it's just a, you know, pot of money. He's always wanting to do the fun stuff with it, but you know,
Mhm.
you have to do this list of approved items.
So I'm going to try and give examples to make it a little bit more concrete, because if they have medical assistance, that does pay for a lot of their medical stuff.
Right.
But let's say, like I worked with a gentleman who wanted a standing wheelchair. You know, he had a back injury, so he was paraplegic, and it was really hard for him socially because literally all of his friends looked down on him to talk to him. He was in a wheelchair. And he wanted to be able to socialize with people by standing and looking them in the eye like he used to. So he wanted a wheelchair that you basically turn a crank and it stands you up. And very awesome device, but medical assistance wouldn't cover it for him. If he had a trust like that, because he also can't save up enough because it's well over $2,000 to get one. So messy situation, but if you had a trust, it could pay for something like that, that medical assistance isn't covering it. So it's still a medical device, but it's something that medical assistance doesn't cover. So that's typically the stuff that those trusts pay for.
How does the money get in it?
Oh gosh, sometimes it's inheritance,
It's privately funded.
yeah,
Okay.
So taxpayer,
it is,
Right.
or your family's money, like
Yeah,
Paul said.
yeah.
Mhm.
Dental expenses are a good one too,
yeah,
because
That's a
it's
great
very,
example.
very difficult to find a dentist who will take MA. And the Partnership Dental Clinic is here in town, but it's extremely difficult to get an appointment there. So in the year and a half that you wait to get an appointment, your teeth can get pretty bad if you aren't in the habit of taking care of it. So
Medical assistance only pays for certain dental expenses also. So they might pay for a extraction versus a crown. I don't know what all their limitations are, but even if you can find a dentist who accepts medical assistance doesn't approve any and all dental work, especially if it's aesthetic. So that would be another example.
including cleaning your teeth.
They do have a free clinic.
But they only do certain dental work.
Oh, I don't know, they just about everything I know of, but it's right across the street from the VA.
Well, let's say you've got a lot of chipped teeth and yellowing.
Oh, yeah, they probably won't do that.
Yeah, so,
I mean, something like that.
yeah. Or like I said, you might be able to save a tooth by putting a crown on it and they'll say, not worth saving, we're pulling your tooth.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you have to
Well,
pay off.
So yes, they'll pull it, but
you know, I'm 100% with the VA, so I mean, 100% with my teeth, because I got 4 of them knocked out in Vietnam. So basically, yeah, I got a lot of, you know, I get free dental, but for the person that doesn't have something like that, it's very difficult because even the veterans, they go without, you know, and then, you know, we try to find them free clinics and then of course, or help pay for that.
yeah.
Depending on the damage of the teeth.
Right.
So it should be the same way for a civilian, you know, like.
It's pretty similar, yep.
Now you said if you needed a crown or something and they would, medical assistance wouldn't pay for it, then you would have to pay for it out of pocket. Right?
Sometimes, and it's not that hard and fast of a rule, but you know, depending on the severity of the damage on the tooth, sometimes they'll pay for it and sometimes they won't. So it's not any different really than my insurance. I have dental insurance and my insurance might say yes and it might say no. And if it says no and I still want it done, I can pay for it. But if I'm under $2,000 in assets, that might not be an option unless I have an able trust. There is mud.
there's one.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Okay,
Yeah, for the next item, Mike Norton is no longer on our committee and he has been our vice chair. So I don't want to vote for a vice chair today because I haven't given you an opportunity to think about who you might want to nominate. And because people who are not present in the room cannot vote, I don't think it's fair to Jan and Liz and Tamar to do a vote when you didn't know you might have been able, not that Jan would fly back from Florida to vote, but but I don't think it's fair to do a vote today. But at the March meeting, please be prepared to make nominations and vote who you would like to have as our replacement vice chair to the committee.
And what does the vice chair do?
When Paul's not here, they basically run the meeting.
Oh,
Yep, and sometimes the vice chair becomes the chair, like Paul's term is done in a few months.
right.
I don't want to talk about it. And so sometimes they step up to be the chair after they've had some experience in place. But it's really more so that when the chair isn't here, that they would run the meeting.
So there have been times where I was out for a knee replacement. So that month, Mike ran the meeting. Okay,
When is the next meeting?
March
Whatever.
13th, March 13th.
yeah, whatever the second Monday in March is.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be in Florida.
Um,
All the
Jan,
more
Jan, when do you
reason-
come back from Florida?
All the more reason to nominate you.
Well, I'll be in Florida until, I'll be back by the 20th.
What about you, Jan? When do you come back?
And we're not coming back till April 1.
Okay, well, we can postpone it till the April meeting
April.
when
April.
both of you have the opportunity to be here, whether you come or not. I just don't want to do it when I know.
So April is. Good.
Okay, well, we'll plan on doing nominations and votes in April.
Okay. Nicole, do you have anything that bring to the committee's attention?
I don't think so.
Lori? Anything from our friends of health?
Just noticing, because I'm in the housing building, so I noticed this up and down with COVID. So lots of people getting sick again, always seems about 90 days or so, and then things start ramping up. We do have, thankfully, we have a lot of COVID tests, so I've gotten them all out into the buildings, and people are taking them and testing, so they know what to do. But just, protect yourself, know what. I wear a mask all the time, it's what I do now, so. I try to protect myself and I protect people who are around. So know that that's out there. Joanne has some wellness, balance, classes that are stepping on, it's on our website, and also, some Tai Chi stuff that's going on, so there's a lot of balance stuff going on with the thing, for classes. And we are looking, both Gwen and I, in April, trying to get something on housing on healthy living with chronic pain, because that's a really big thing with people, and so we're trying to get a class over there to see how that goes. To see how people can manage with their pain better. So we're pretty excited about that going down. I don't think there's anything else. Nothing really ramping down with the vaccine clinic, so we are on Wednesdays, we walk in Wednesday, on Wednesdays only at Sunnyview from 3 to 5:30, so they change the time a bit. And then they also have it at the library in the morning, so it's condensed into one day, but there's still opportunities for people who are in the city, who really don't have that transportation to get over to the library. And then, otherwise we do have Sunnyview up there.
Do you have a sense of how many seniors or individuals 60 and older or 65 and older percentage wise are vaccinated?
That percentage wise is down. The last time I looked, it was pretty low, especially with the bivalent. So the vaccine itself, we had a really high elderly population and overall, higher general population. But when the bivalent came, that kind of really ramped down a little bit. What happens is people don't always understand vaccines, so they go, well, I got this vaccine, why should I get a vaccine if it's not going to protect me at all? But it runs like the flu vaccine. So a vaccine is only effective for a certain time. And so when we get our flu vaccine is effective for about, for 6 months, but it starts to wane and it doesn't give us that protection after about 4 months. So it gets a little weaker, and pretty soon, after 6 months, it doesn't work. So we're not getting our yearly, because that's probably what's going to happen with COVID, our yearly vaccine, we're not going to have the protection. And if we don't have that protection, then potentially we get sicker. So I don't know what the percentage is, but I know it's way lower. I just think that we have to get an education out so people understand how vaccines work. Because I don't think that it was brought out personally. I don't think it was brought out in a really good understanding way, so people couldn't understand it. So when people want to know, I try to educate as much as possible so that you have a better understanding. Like, yeah, this vaccine does protect me from getting sicker. Yes, I might still get sick, but hopefully I'm not one that, my body didn't really respond to the vaccine, so I got really sick. But hopefully it responded and I don't get as sick as I would have if I didn't have the vaccine at all.
You know, I think that we're, as a general public, we're confused a little bit about what the difference between the flu shot and the vaccine is because we call a flu shot a shot, and we get that every year.
Yeah.
And we're not afraid of it, but a vaccine seems to have that, like polio vaccine, where it's a lifelong thing. And maybe it's terminology that,
I think you're right. I think that there are a number of people who treat it because it's a vaccine. They think of polio and typhoid and whatever, not, and really the flu shot is a vaccine too, but you're absolutely right. I think that there are a number of people who are confused.
yeah, well, when I got my last shot, my vaccine, the COVID shot, and before that, at the same time, they, even at the drugstore, they called it a flu shot, and they called the other one vaccine. Why don't they call those shots?
Yeah, I guess,
Yeah,
never thought of that.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
I hadn't either, but I think you're right.
well, I could just voice my own opinion, but yeah. Vaccines aren't, some of them vaccines aren't even been proven that they do work. And they haven't been, you know, you just don't create a vaccine within a year. It takes 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years to really prove anything on that vaccine. Now, I know doctors that have told me the same thing, and there's doctors that won't even take them. You know, so that's my opinion on the vaccine.
Yeah.
Now, the flu shots might work. I mean, you know, God only knows I had the shingle shot and the flu shot, or you know, whatever. You know, the VA made sure that you got your one for, what is that called, shingles? There was a 2-shot series for the shingles. Right? So, you know, you don't want to get that shot. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
But that's just my own opinion on the vaccine. I don't trust it. I don't trust the government and I don't trust the vaccine.
So the hard part is when we get negative information goes way farther than positive.
It's not negative information.
Yeah.
It's information that you don't have about that product.
Mhm.
It's like trying to sell you a car and that guy knows that the transmission is bad, but they got it covered up. You know, we don't know anything about that vaccine. It hasn't even been a year and they made it into a vaccine and given it to people.
And Michael, I don't want to cut you off. It's just that we're allowed to share updates at this point in the agenda. But because it's not on the agenda, I don't want to get too far down the COVID vaccination route because it's really not an agenda item.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
sorry.
Okay,
Just to summarize that up. I think what happened was the science became politicized. And when that happens, there's naturally a lot of confusion. And when people say science is not 100% like anything else in life. So that's the way I look at it.
Beth, do you have anything else?
The other two
Staff?
items I had to add is, Brian mentioned at the last meeting that there was a staff who left the ADRC to go be an ombudsman, which is wonderful for her. And we have replaced her with a woman who used to work for our economic support division. And then she left to work for Outagamie County Economic Support, and she'll be starting with us March 2nd. So she may be at our next meeting, but we're very excited to have her on board. So there won't be too much of a gap. And then secondly, we're going to be having our first wheelchair wash committee meeting. For those of you who don't know, we have a wheelchair wash every summer, and it's a great fun event. It's really cool to do that as a community event. And it'll be likely in July, but we have a couple planning meetings for it. So if you're interested in being on the planning meeting for that, if you could just contact me so I make sure I include you when I schedule that first planning meeting. In
Now,
March.
what is this, like a fundraiser or just a
No,
fun event?
it's just a fun event. It's a free thing. So if anyone has a wheelchair, a walker, any type of adaptive device, you can bring it to, we do it over at JNR Auto here in Oshkosh. And we completely wash it down, have it inspected to see if there's anything loose or that needs to be repaired on it. And then there's food and music and just, you know, it's an opportunity for people to get a really good, and then while you're having your wheelchair, for example, washed, we put you in a loaner chair. And so, I mean, we really take it apart and clean it. So
Wow, that's
yeah,
cool.
it is. It's really fun. We usually get a lot of people who are there just to help out. It's a 2-hour event, and it's free. It's not no funds exchanged at all.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So if you want to be on the
I will
planning
get the
committee,
word out there.
yes, I'll give you more information when I have a definite date after our first meeting. That's it.
Liz, anything for the committee?
Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute. No, I do not have anything to report, I don't think. Nope. Everybody.
Mara?
Yeah, actually, last week was Feeding Tube Awareness Week. That was from February 6th to the 10th. And I know it's not on the agenda, but can I just say a few things about that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there are people in the aging and disabled community that have feeding tubes. From newborns up to the geriatric population, there's different reasons why people might need them. Usually it's because they're not able to consume proper nutrition or hydration orally, and their doctors have decided that's the next best thing for them. There's a lot of diagnoses that require the need for a feeding tube. And sometimes a patient's condition can improve and they can get the feeding tube out, and other times it's just never able to come out. So there's many types of feeding tubes. And a GI team will sit down with a patient or their family and just discuss with a team of people to develop a plan for calculating the amount of calories they're going to need in a day and the fluid intake that they're going to need. So some patients have a mechanical electric pump and some use a bolus gravity syringe to push the feed manually. So within the last decade, there's been more research away from the formula-based diets to that of real food blends. So there are some patients who choose to use fresh nuts, oils, vegetables, fruits, meats, grains, and they'll put that into a blender and liquefy that into a meal and just put that right in the tube. So it's kind of something new that's happening. At the end of the day, fed is best. So happy feeding tube awareness. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow.
Thank you.
And just so everyone's clear, so you can provide information to us during this part of the agenda, but like now that Tamar has provided that information, we can't like debate it or say, hey, next year let's, and start coming up with what to do with that information. It's out there. And if you wanted to further talk about it, we could put it on the next agenda. That's just kind of where the Robert's Rules of Order kind of fall.
Jan?
Nothing.
Thank you. Kate?
Well, I raised my hand, I think about 18 months ago to be in the guardian pool. And I was assigned a man who's now 23, lives in Whitewater, and that's been a good experience. So they called me and asked me if I would be in the guardian pool and accept someone else. And I said, sure. So now what's happened is, because there's this new training that's required to be a guardian as of January 1st. So you're grandfathered in. So I wouldn't have had to go back and do the training for the people I'm already guardian for, because now this is number 3. But because it happened after January 1st, it was like 10 days ago, we went to court. I had to take this training. Well, I have some suggestions and I don't know what to do with them, because first of all, it was 18 months from the last one, and I didn't have to appear in court when I was assigned to the last man. This time, they told me about 9 days beforehand that I had to be at court at a specific time on a specific date. And I said, that's very interesting, because I get back from Florida at midnight the night before. And in the meantime, I needed to take this guardianship training, which is online. So I had to do that while I was in Florida. And then I finished that, and they said it was gonna be 2 hours and it was actually more like 3 to 3.5. And I finished that up and then they called me on Friday and said, and I was still in Florida, and they said, well, now the sister wants to be the guardian. And I said, okay, great, let the sister be the guardian. Monday morning, they said, well, you're back to being the guardian. Because the sister isn't gonna do it. And so they wanted me to squeeze in a visit with this man before I left, so I had 2 days to get over and meet him. The communication needs work.
So my suggestion would be to set up a Zoom or a meeting or a phone call with Nicole and I, just to talk about how we can improve that.
I think that it would not take much to improve that system.
Yep.
And it sounds like you struggle to get people to be pool volunteers. And I think if I hadn't already been a volunteer beforehand, this would have really turned me on.
And that's why I think it would be helpful to share some information with Nicole and I, so that as we're recruiting new people, we can be better prepared for that.
Right.
So, and she supervises the APS staff who do the guardianship petitions, which is why both her and I can.
I'm happy to do it.
Okay,
You let me know when.
all right.
That's it for me.
Rob, anything?
Yeah, a couple of things, you'll see how they tie together. The East Central Regional Planning Commission is discussing the planning commission. We're having a meeting tomorrow at 1:30. I tried to get Mark Roloff and John Domel I'm pronouncing his name right. Anyway, I tried to get them together and I couldn't do it. But I did have a chance to talk with John, and he was because we're looking at Route 10, and basically he wanted to find the fastest way from the Oshkosh transfer station to the Nina transfer station. And so we're working on that. I asked him about the prison. And he said, well, the prison only has about a 1.5% usage. So that was not feasible based on that. So that's to be considered. I guess Jim Collins, the director of transportation for Oshkosh, is trying to develop a route. A lot of this stuff is in the planning stages. That's kind of a brief summary.
And Rob, I don't remember if it was you or someone else from the committee that asked to have this on our agenda coming up. No, I just want to let you know, I'm not putting it on the agenda until they figure that out.
Oh,
Right now, it would be
that's-
just exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
So as far as what transportation options are available until they.
I just wanted to update you that I have been sitting on my laurel. And so that's about all I have, is been busy trying to pull information together, because that was one of the goals that we asked for goals several months ago after this year. And so I just wanted to let you know I'm working on that.
Thank you, Rob. Jim,
Good.
you're good? Michael?
Oh, the only thing I have is like, you know, I know I'm a Winnebago County Board Supervisor. So if there's anything that you need to present as far as a resolution or anything, I don't know how you handle that, Beth, but I mean, I can help turn a resolution in and we can work on it together and get it turned into the board and get it approved. Some of these, so you know, there's 38 of us, so.
Yeah, so that, you know, sometimes we've done, just so the committee is aware, with what Michael's talking about, we've done, elder abuse awareness proclamation, autism, I think was on 1 year. So those are the kinds of things. Sometimes we do a resolution or proclamation that any county board member can co-author and put on there. So thank you.
Okay.
Harold,
No report.
no report from me. Any other business before the committee? Going once,
Make a motion to adjourn.
adjourned. Thank you, folks.